Welcome everyone to Fighting for Better Health. My name is Tracy Dewar, and I am here with everyone with a huge passion around helping, not only fighting for better health, but helping us as human beings heal thyself. In other words, being a healthier self by taking the education, the support, and accountability it actually takes to be 100% better. And tonight we are here to share with our gorgeous Angela Rako on kids' health. And she comes from an amazing background herself personally, not only on colors and flavors on kids' health, but also the fact that she's a mother of three kids herself. They're in sports. And so she works full time and she is dedicated and has a complete mission on 100% better with health as well. She currently is working in the global digital space of working with people. And so I thought tonight would be a great episode to share with you guys tonight on how longevity for the past 3 years have made a difference in her life, her kids' life, and those around us. Without further ado, Angela, how are you
Hey,
tonight?
Tracy.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's
So,
my absolute pleasure. So before we get started, tell me what's going on in the world of Angela.
so currently, as you mentioned, working full time in people and culture, but um, I also am very interested in health and well-being, nutrition, kids' health, my family's health, and basically spreading the word around the importance of good food, good nutrition, and how it impacts us not only today, but also tomorrow.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I honestly feel right now more than ever before, we are being bombarded by the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we
mm,
eat, even our the shampoos and conditioners, our toothpaste, the fragrances, the makeup, the skincare, the regulations are just not there, but yet they regulate us so highly on our nutrition
yeah.
supplement products. It's just mind boggling. But you know what? We're here today, and those that are listening to this are at the right place at the right time with the right people and the right product. So share with us today how you got passionate about health and nutrition and kind of your expertise around kids' health, colors, flavors, and how we're being poisoned.
Yeah, and it's exactly what you're saying, Tracy. Like, we are being poisoned. All these toxins that you mentioned before have an impact on our not only our physical health, but our mental health, our emotional well-being. How I got started in the area of particularly kids' health is that as you said, I've got three kids. My eldest is now 17. Hard to believe. This week, you're supposed to say I don't look that old. Like,
No, you don't.
I'm joking. No. So I have an undergraduate degree, Bachelor of Applied Science in Disability, major in psychology. And through that, I remember studying neurological impacts and the impact of also of food on nutrition and well-being and brain development and, developing fetus and that. And so I always thought that, particularly with my 2-year-old, so he's now 17, but I always home cooked meals. I didn't do, prepackaged foods, etc. for him. But I'll never forget that. And so his treat as a toddler would be dried apricots, dried fruit. And I'll never forget one day I was at the local supermarket and I had all these people looking at me like, and they had that look, control your kid. And I thought I couldn't understand the behavior that he was demonstrating, running up and down the aisles, screaming. And it was like he was having problems breathing as well. I was like, something's not right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And then suddenly I had a moment where I went, hang on, I think this has got to do something with the fruit, the dried fruit. I don't know why, it just came. And so when I looked into the ingredient list on the dried apricot packet, I was like, sulfur dioxide, preservative 2,2-O. That can't be, there's something not right there. Anyway, I did some research around it, completely cleaned up the diet, still giving him dried fruit, but organic dried fruit. And suddenly when I started to focus on the colors on what I thought were healthy options, the positive impact and change that had on him and his well-being and his focus and how he could speak to people. And so that was within itself. And then I had people asking me, like, why the change in his behavior? And I started educating people. And then that's how I came into, at that time, I had started doing lots of public speaking around the impact of artificial colors, flavors, preservatives on kids, and the importance of kids' health, not only for now, but, in the future. And started doing a lot of work then with Additive Free Pantry, which at that time was Tanya Winfield, and started an online forum where I was educating people around the artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, but also, alternative options to better health. So, my kids still got to have lollipops when they were kids. So I've now got a 17-year-old, 15-year-old, 13-year-old, and they still love their treats. And they did as kids, they weren't deprived of the lollipop, etc. But for example, I used to give them lollipops, which sound disgusting, with, pumpkin and carrot and apple and, beans in there and black currants. But every kid that I ever gave one to absolutely loved all of those. So it was just about presenting different options and making sure that, everything that goes in has an impact on the way we behave, the way we speak, the way we present ourselves, the way we can focus. And so everything that goes in has to have a positive impact on health.
And it's amazing because we as parents, we genuinely, all of us, really want to do the right thing by our kids. And we actually believe we are, by thinking we're making the right choices. And when we buy a cereal and it says fortified, or, just things like that, when we genuinely think we're doing the right thing, and we're actually being lied to.
Yeah. And that's exactly the thing, Tracy. I think I mentioned to you an example of, I'd started buying, when my son was about 4, I started buying these kids' health bars, and I'm not going to mention the company name here, but I started buying these kids' health bars. And for those of you that want to know the details around this bar, you could Google Healthy Angels, Angela Rako, and I'm sure it comes up in a Google search. But I was looking to buy these kids' bars for my son, and when I looked at the ingredient packet, it said natural color. And so, like you said, most parents, the best intentions, would go natural color. That seems healthy, right? It's natural. Yeah. But what we actually, there's 2 artificial colors, two natural colors, 120 and 160B, which are marketed as natural, which have just as much negative impact on, focus, attention, wetting, behavior, breathing difficulties, etc. And so it's the importance of understanding and reading your labels, and that whilst we try and do the right thing, that we really do need to educate ourselves and with intention, read our labels. And as much as I know that life gets busy, and we resort to a lot of packaged food because of convenience, and there are healthier options. It's just about getting educated. And I hope tonight, particularly when we go through the 10 tips around kids' health, particularly in one where I can talk about some of these numbers to stay away from, etc. It's just about that education. And it's not only for kids. We should all be avoiding these numbers, but kids are developing. And so it is even more important that, because their bodies are developing, that they avoid as much of the nasties and the importance of good health on the developing body. As I said, not only for today, but the impact it has in the future. Things around infertility is on the increase. These cancers are on the increase. Behavioral disturbances are on. These labels around ADHD and autism. Yeah. Why is it so much more now?
And why aren't people speaking up? Why
Yeah.
aren't people speaking up? The numbers are increasing, like you said,
Yeah.
the autism, ADHD, all that, like they're increasing, but why aren't we speaking up? So, okay, so we got a great topic here. And I just want to highlight before we go through these 10 steps, natural flavors. Like you said, you highlighted you cannot trust it's saying natural flavors, which is really hard for a company that does have efficacy, purity, and potency, like longevity, that has natural flavors, that is from beetroot or
Hmm.
from real not. So you, how us as a consumer can identify that, and so that's why it's we're really this is our goal here tonight is let's
Yeah.
educate, let's give our people some tools to make some good choices, selections, good company, good products, and be with some good people to help support them in there. So are we ready to showcase these tips? Are you ready to go?
Yeah. So if you want to pull it up, Tracy, then
I
can.
will. Let's do this. Okay, so let me just share my screen here. So just give me one quick second and we'll get this party going. I just got a few little things on my screen. So let's hit present. If only I could just hit it and it just pops up. Okay. All right. So
All
I
right.
guess you get started, darling. You talk about nurturing our kids' well-being.
And that's what it has to be. Our kids trust in us to nurture them to grow into strong, kind, successful, passionate, influential adults that have empathy and that can also advocate for better health. Um, you know, we are responsible for our kids and we need to advocate for their health. And so these 10 tips to nurturing our children's well-being, it's your responsibility. It's my responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. And so the first one, and I'm not saying that these are the only 10 ways to nurture good health, but this is because I could just go on and about it. But balanced nutrition, this is about balancing protein, good fat, your carbs, your fiber, your vitamins, your minerals, but being mindful of refined carbs, the sugar that's hidden in our food, our breads, our sauces, as much as possible. Have fun, be creative, make as much as you can from home. Yes, there's going to be times where we're going to resort to, packaged and processed foods, but really reading the labels and understanding what's in your food. For example, a lot of dried fruit I mentioned before has preservative 2,2-O, which has shown to potentially cause breathing difficulties, to have an impact or negative impact on focus and concentration. And so, staying away from your numbers 2,2-O, known as sulfur dioxide, through to 2,2,6. We've heard a lot around MSG. MSG, what the research shows us, may lead to your bedwetting, your nightmares, your lack of concentration, and potentially infertility, later in life. And so MSG is numbers 621, 627, 631, 635. And then some companies try and be a bit sneaky. Yeast extract, that kind of sounds a bit more healthy because it's yeast, right? Yeast is in bread, but yeast extract is another form of MSG, and so is hydrolyzed vegetable protein. So staying away from HVP. For example, Vegemite has got yeast extract in there. An equivalent that I've used with my kids, and I still use with my kids for Vegemite, is miso paste. And so what I used to do when we were transitioning from Vegemite to miso paste was I would get the miso paste and empty it into the Vegemite jar. And then once my kids were eating it and didn't know the difference between it, then I was upfront with them and explained to them why we'd gone to miso paste instead of Vegemite.
Can you share, Angela, before you keep going on that, not to interrupt, but tell people here tonight what makes miso paste so powerful and potent?
So it's the fermentation. So it's linked to, fermented foods have a positive impact on your gut health. And so it's going to have a positive impact. You're still getting also the salt that's in it, which we know that salt, despite
good salts.
Yep, the good salt, despite what we're influenced to believe salt, as Dr. Wallach talks about, salt consumption, good salt has a positive impact on us. And so, yeah, instead of having, you know, your Vegemite that's got your MSG in there, having your fermented food that you're having is going to have better nutritional value on the growing body. Yes. Also, sorry, I'm just some other numbers that, because of course this is the one that I'm going to spend the longest time, the most amount of time on, because there is so much, there's such a lack of information around this. Also, staying away from your artificial colors. So 950, 951, 952, aspartame, all the artificial sweeteners. So when my kids were a lot younger, I particularly would not allow them to have any, you know, diet drinks. They've never really had fizzy drinks, or, you know, you like my son has had Coca-Cola, I think it's twice in his life, and that wasn't because I gave it to him, it's because someone else. But, you know, like my other two kids won't even go near it. But if you're going to drink lemonade or, you know, a Solo or something like that, just go for the sugar. Don't go for the, you know, the diet version, because it has got aspartame in there. And when my kids were younger, my husband and some people around us thought I was absolutely over the top and protective around not giving my kids any of these artificial drinks or this gum. And then probably, I think it was about 4 years ago, my father-in-law came over one day and he said, you know, I've got to thank you. And I said, what's that for? And he said, because I just heard on the news that these artificial flavors, these artificial sweeteners are potentially linked to cancer. He said, and you've done the right thing. He goes, even though we used to give you a hard time around being over the top and protective, he goes, you've done the right thing by my grandchildren. And yeah, like it was difficult because, you know, years ago, people used to think I was a bit over the top, but now suddenly the evidence is coming out around how bad these artificial colors, flavors, preservatives are. There's also a Can the Colors campaign. So, you know, making cupcakes with my kids, icing cupcakes. What I used to do, and I did this at my kids' kinder program. So we made cupcakes and we actually boiled beetroot and used the coloring from the beetroot juice to ice the cupcakes. So they still got the red icing, but it wasn't this artificial red that is linked to behavioral issues, that is linked to breathing difficulties, that is linked to sleep disturbances. And so just balancing nutrition, looking at alternative ways. So if you look up Can the Colors, there's and your two natural colors, 120, 160B, but also there's 129, there's 131, 127, and 135. So just avoiding those artificial colors. There is a whole heap more also, but the other main one I just want to point out is your nitrates. So, and this is on Dr. Wallach's bad food list, avoiding, you know, your cured meats, your that have nitrates 250, 251, 252 in there. Speak to your butcher. So my kids still get to have, you know, a sausage in bread, but I've gone to my local butcher and asked them to make, you know, sausages without the preservatives. Yes, I have to buy 5 kilos at a time, but you get a couple of your, you know, 0.10 of this kids' health is around, it takes a village to raise a child. Get your village together, put in a bulk order, and you can get your 5 kilos, you know, of your bulk order that you need to order of your preservative-free sausages. But they're not, you know, 250, 251, type 252. One day my youngest daughter wanted a sausage from Bunnings, and I explained to her that, you know, I don't really do that because of the preservative. And later that afternoon, she was complaining that she had pains in her tummy. And when I said to her, that's because of the sausage you had at Bunnings and the bread that you had that had 282 in there. And she was like, no way, no way. Anyway, she then went to Bunnings again with my husband and had another one. And she came home that night and she said, Mum, I'm never having another sausage that's got that in there again, because she experienced it herself.
Yeah.
So,
That's
there's
what's
also
amazing, is letting them experience it.
Mhm.
It's not going to kill them, but it's the repetition of it after that, and the fact that she actually experienced it. But if they keep doing it, it will have
Yeah.
adverse effects for sure.
And even one of my daughters that was having a energy drink that had yellow flavoring in there. And I said to her, I much prefer you take the rebound than go and have this drink. And she was like, no, but I want to, the rest of the girls on the team are having it. And I'm like, okay. And it's got to a point now where it's experiential learning. I could tell them as much as I could, but now my 3 kids are the biggest advocates around avoiding artificial colors, flavors, preservatives. And, like half of my daughter's football team is on the electrofuel rather than these, high sugar marketed drinks that are out there. And it's so much better for them because it has got the magnesium. It doesn't have the artificial color flavor. But if I had sometimes, and like you said, sometimes I've just had to let them go and experience it and I'm so glad though that I started the education from when they were young, because I've been able to show them alternatives. But they are teenagers, they are going to stuff up, and sometimes they do want to go and have things and be with their friends, and that's okay. But then they make that choice moving forward.
I remember, because I'm mother of 4. And same, I went through the same process those first 10, actually maybe up until 11 or 12 years. I was that one. They may have got a barley candy once here and there, or they went to a birthday party occasionally, and I let them experience a birthday party the way they were. And we had to process, after a birthday party, but that was fun. And then through teenager, they did have to go through their own experiences. And now leading into like adulthood, they're better than me. They're amazing. They're even better with their kids. So it's great to see the education, giving them the roots and the wings.
Yeah.
How powerful that really is. It makes a difference. So your education's great. So for sure.
Yeah. So just in summary, to the numbers. So obviously I've talked about balanced nutrition and, as much as possible, our eating non-packaged foods, but when there's always going to be a time and a place where we are going to resort to packaged food, and not all packaged food is bad. But reading your label, just to summarize, please avoid 120, 160B, obviously 13. I talked about 127, 129, 130, 131, 132, and 135, but then also 220 to 226, 250, 251, 252. There's also preservative 282, which is found in a lot of breads. And then there's yeast extract, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, which are forms of MSG. There's 621, 625, 627, 631, 635, which are also forms of MSG. And then there's also 950, 951, 952, which are artificial sweeteners. There are a heap more, and antioxidants 319 and 320. But in summary, if you can just try as much as possible and avoid these numbers, then you're definitely on the right track.
And so do you have a list of this anywhere, or is there somewhere someone could find this? Where would someone find this information?
So we, you know what, I could actually, I've got my own, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this here, but I've got my own Essential to Be Instagram page and
then they're going to need to follow
Facebook
you.
page. And I can pop them on there. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to send. I do have like a bookmark that I created when I was running Healthy Angels, when I created the online platform, and I used to do a lot of the public speaking. And so it was kind of like a bookmark that I would give to people laminated, and they keep it in their purse or their wallets. So I can, send that to
Let's them get them following you. We'll make sure I put it in the description. And if you do have a link to this bookmark, we can put it in the description.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. So wonderful.
So balanced nutrition is the first one. Physical activity. Obviously, the impact of physical activity has benefits on not only physical health, but also mental health and emotional well-being. National guidelines show that a 1 to 5 year old should be having 3+ hours per day of physical activity. A 5 to 12 year old should be having 60 minutes per day. 5 to 17 year old, because 17 year old is still considered a kid, 60 minutes per day. Now, this can take the form of, running, obviously playing in the park, anything that requires activity. And if you've got increased physical activity, it has a positive impact on fine motor development, gross motor development, language development, social development, that interaction, that experiential learning. And make fun with it. Like, get out there. Like, I never forget, and physical activity leads to different experiences. I'll never forget when my kids were 2, 4, and 6, and it was a summer's day, but it was absolutely pouring, and they needed to get outside and have some outside fresh air time, and it was pouring, and I said to them, "Come on, we're going to go jump in puddles." And my 2 daughters were like, "Yeah, let's do that." Like, yeah, but my son was like, "It's raining, we can't go outside, we're going to get wet." And so I said, "No, we're going to go outside." And he had this closed mindset that you couldn't be outside when it was raining because you were going to get wet. And so, his personal growth around and new experience of it's okay to get wet and be outside and have fun. And so just that physical activity, something different, has a positive impact on other, it also has an impact on your brain health. Physical activity, we all know, makes us physically tired, which then has a positive impact on sleep and sleep quality. It also has an impact on brain health because of those experiences that I just talked about. So definitely also physical activity leads to bone strength. It leads to muscle development, which, as I said, then has an impact on your gross and fine motor skills. And this is particularly important for kids growing, because if you don't develop as much as possible those gross and fine motor skills, then that's going to have
and muscle memory.
And yeah, exactly, muscle memory. Then also this has an impact on their mental mindset, mental development, physical development as adolescents, and then particularly young adults, and then the impact that has on bone density as we age as well. So it's really important when kids are young to get that physical activity, because like I said, it's not only about the now, but it's about the tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Sufficient sleep. This is a really, really big one. And this actually also links in with one of the steps later on. I think it's step 7. But sufficient sleep is really important for the ability to focus, for mood as well, and for mindset. Think about, when you haven't had enough sleep as an adult, how do you function the next day?
Yeah.
Are you craving the sugary foods? Are you wanting to eat, those packet of chips, or have an extra coffee to get your energy going? This is the same with our kids. Kids need sleep. If you look at the national guidelines, for a 4-month-old to 1-year-old, it's 12 to 16 hours of sleep is recommended. For a 1 to 2-year-old, it's 11 to 14 hours. For a 3 to 5-year-old, it's 10 to 13 hours. For a 6 to 12-year-old, it's 9 to 12 hours, and 13 to 18 and into adulthood is 8 to 10 hours per day. So if we don't have enough sleep, then our ability to focus, our mood is all negatively impacted. Think about in getting enough sleep, the routine has to start before you've actually got to in the bedroom, the child in the bed. Think about setting up a bedtime routine. Is it having a bath at night, or does this stimulate? For one of my kids, having a shower at night actually stimulates her. She has to have her shower in the morning. So whereas for my other child, one of my other daughters, she needs to have the shower at night to help relax her. And she's worked out she can't have it 2 hours before going to bed, because then it negatively impacts on her sleep. She's worked out that she has to have it just before she goes to sleep. Thinking about, like, I have the diffusers going. So usually, typically about 8 o'clock at night, I have the diffusers going in each of the kids' rooms with oils in there. And so, you know, that's starting to send a mental signal that it's wind down time. And it also just helps create an ambient environment, a relaxation environment. And the really big one, no screens 1 hour before bed.
Yeah. And I've even read as much as 2 hours, but hey, 1 hour is better than what probably most kids are getting right now.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Becoming sleep experts. Absolutely. This is
yeah.
my favorite one. I really appreciate this one here, especially that's what I'm doing. Hydrating,
Yeah.
with my BTT, with my soul, especially at night, relaxing me, chilling me out.
Yeah. So staying hydrated. And this is what I love. One of the things I love about longevity, there are so many options for so many different people, regardless of your taste bud. And really, there is no excuse for not staying hydrated with the options that are out there. But staying hydrated. If we're not hydrated, then this has an impact on our bowels. So constipation. If we're not hydrated has an impact on the ability to focus. If we're not hydrated, has an impact on skin density, particularly as well as we age. If we're not hydrated, it has an impact on, you know, I'm sure that if you found that you haven't had enough water to drink, you start getting brain fog and headaches. And so the importance of staying hydrated and staying hydrated regularly, not, you know, in my 26 years of working in aged care, disability and mental health prior to, you know, working in the digital space, one of the things that we were big on was monitoring how much hydration people were having consistently. You know, suddenly sculling 1 liter of water is not the same as sipping water through the day. So, you know, staying regular, carry your water bottle with you, electrofuel. Wow. There's no reason to not be hydrated. And, you know, the other benefits of staying hydrated, but also, for example, something like electrofuel that has got your magnesium in there, it's got your B12 in there. You're getting all the, you know, the balanced nutrition, going back to point one. So, and also, you know, your rebound, your BTT, so getting all your, and by putting all of these vitamin, mineral supplementation and these hydration sticks into your water bottle, you're going to want to drink more.
Yeah. Because of the healthy sodium in there. It makes one more as well.
And the flavor. And the flavor.
Yeah.
You know, having the Smart stick with the Soul actually tastes like lemonade.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely,
you know,
taken a whole new direction of making hydration fun, having hydration with purpose, depending on how you want to feel and the direction you want to go in your day.
And be creative with hydration. It doesn't have to just be a water bottle, right? In the warmer months, ice cubes or, you know, soups, that's still adding to hydration. You know, your watermelon through your fruits, that's still adding hydration. So it doesn't have to just be a water bottle.
Yeah, amazing. Sorry, I keep hitting number 5.
That's all right.
Finger was there. Wasn't me saying to move on.
No, all good. So mental stimulation is 0.5. And so the importance of mental stimulation has an impact on physical, cognitive, and emotional development. Mental stimulation, so experiencing new opportunities and new experiences, and, you know, mental stimulation is trying different things. And even when trying new things, there's going to be challenges that are presented in life, but mental stimulation is not about giving your kids the answer. Mental stimulation is working with them to expand their thinking on how to work through challenges. And so, you know, that, and then that working through that also has an impact on, you know, your language development, your analytical skills, your problem solving skills. So mental stimulation is absolutely important for kids' health, because if you keep on serving all the answers and solving all the problems of the world for your kid, you're not doing them any favors.
Yeah. And that's where, again, puzzles and problem solving, you know, that and games and things like that are so amazing for kids. And especially it comes down to the family time that goes with it.
Yeah.
Just like what is it? Just like you know, as we talked about the kids' activities, how amazing it is to do kids' activities with the family as a
Yeah.
family. You know, it creates extra emotional well-being. There you go, number 6. That's what
Yeah. And also the impact that it has on relationships.
Yeah.
As well, like you were saying, Tracy, the impact that mental stimulation on, you know, the puzzles, the card games. Often, if, you know, my kids say they're bored, I'm like, what shall we do? And more often than not, it's either let's bake, which I love because I love cooking, or let's play a game of cards.
Yeah. Boredom is amazing for creating mental
Yeah.
stimulation and creativity. Absolutely.
Number 6 is emotional well-being, and this is one of my faves. Creating a safe, loving environment has a positive impact on emotional well-being. You know, one of them, each night, I'll lie down with my kids for, you know, 5 minutes each, and I remind them that it's my favorite part of the day because I get to have a one-on-one hug with each of them. Sometimes that's when they want to talk, and sometimes it's just we lay there and have a hug in silence. But providing that consistent, nurturing, loving environment, I always get complimented on how level-headed my kids are. And I think it's creating that stable emotional environment that has got boundaries in place as well, because boundaries is what makes kids particularly feel safe. And so also emotional well-being, find the love language that works for your kid. And so, like for example, with my son, what works with him is spending that, you know, 10 minutes of just him and I, no one else around, and actually having a conversation. With my second child, the language of love is going out and doing something physical. Like, she just loves anything exercise, physical, being outdoors. For my third child, the language of love is actually sitting there playing games together or baking. And so when you find that language, that's how you connect. And then when you've got that connection is when your kids are going to talk to you. And then that's when you get that emotional well-being, because they know, and reminding them, like I say to my kids, I would rather hear it from you no matter how bad you stuff up. Your dad and I are always going to be there for you. You won't get in trouble for what you perceive as stuffing up, but you'll get in trouble for being dishonest or not owning it and being accountable to it.
Yeah.
And so just providing that nurturing, and involving them in decision making, you know, like one of my children was going through a phase of being a little bit challenging, but hey, teenagers, right? That's what can happen. But when I say challenging, like nothing awful, but so, and he was talking, my son was talking to me in a way that I didn't appreciate and I didn't like, and I didn't feel respected. And so I asked him to stop, and he kept on pushing, and, you know, like he's 17 now. And he's a great 17-year-old. I cannot, honestly, I'm so blessed. But I did say to him one day when he kept on, you know, being a little bit disrespectful, I said, it's your choice. Either you need to start respecting me, or you need to come up with a consequence. And he he was like, well, I don't need consent. And I said, okay, if you don't, then I will. So I put the control back to him. And of course, he kept on pushing. And I explained to him and I said, if you do not stop, you are in control. Tomorrow, you will be making your own way to jiu-jitsu. Do not come to me about it. And so he kept on going. And tomorrow came. And he asked, what time are we leaving for jiu-jitsu? And I said, well, I don't know what time you're leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I said, I reminded you yesterday that if you did not stop being disrespectful to me, you would find your own way to jiu-jitsu. And so I had to follow through on what I had said. And that's how I developed mutual respect. And he knew that the next time I put those boundaries in place, I was actually going to follow through with what I said, because I've done it since they were two. Since they were little. And I use another example of when he was two, he had this Shrek doll. No, sorry, he was three. He had a Shrek doll that he got given for Christmas. And we were going to the maternal child health nurse for our 3-year-old appointment. And in one of the movies, I don't know, Shrek gets into this point, but then my son kept on saying, shut up to me. And he was 3 then, and I said to him, if you say say shut up one more time, I said, I'm going to get Shrek, because he loved Shrek, the doll, and I'm going to put him in the bin. And so he looks at me, and I knew that he knew what shut up meant, and I knew that he knew what he was doing. And so he looks at me and he said, shut up. And so I got Shrek and I put Shrek in the bin. So when we went to the maternal child health nurse, they were talking and he said, Mum, put Shrek in the bin. And so, we had to explain what this was. And she said to me, that following through and having those boundaries in place, it's what's going to make him feel safe and feel comfortable and start to respect boundaries. And he still remembers this day where Shrek ended up in the bin. So yeah, just that mutual respect, involving them in making decisions. And it is all about that, constantly reminding them. Like I'll often say to, for example, my son, you're my most favorite 17-year-old in the world. And I'll say to my daughter, Isabella, you are, what do I say to her? You're the best Isabella in the world. And then I'll say to my daughter, Gabriella, you're my favorite Gabriella. There's no other Gabriella quite like you. And I often, will reinforce and say to them, thank you for choosing me to be your mum.
Yeah.
And so that all positively impacts on emotional well-being. So just reassuring your kids that everything will be okay. Be grateful for what they have, not what they don't have. All has a positive impact on emotional well-being, and reminding and emotional well-being, educate your kids, because if you don't, the internet will.
Yeah.
So
or their friends.
Yeah. So, and just, when they speak to you, that emotional well-being, don't react, even if it's something inside your head that you're thinking, oh my gosh, what on earth? Like, don't negatively react, because then you're shutting down that emotional well-being. Then they're not going to come to you in the future with things they want to talk about. Yeah. And when they start doing that, they start to withdraw, which then has a negative impact on mental health.
Absolutely. Huge. And then here's the other one that has a huge impact on mental health.
Yeah, limiting screen time. Yeah. So when you look at the national guidelines, kids 0 to 2 years old should not be having any screen time. 2 to 5 year olds, no more than 1 hour a day, and up to 5 to 17-year-olds, no more than 2 hours a day. Yeah. And this goes back to that mutual respect and that emotional well-being. Develop rules with your kids so that they're in control, like particularly when, my kids were younger. And even now we still have boundaries around screen time, 17, 15, 13. But particularly when they were younger, up until probably a year ago. So from a Friday, so during the week, we don't do screen time still. There's no screen time. On the weekends, so what we've always done before is, and now I think because we developed this in consultation with the kids, and they helped make those decisions, it's not an issue. Like, so I would do from Friday night till Sunday night, they would get 4 hours across the weekend of screen time. And it was up to them to choose when they would use it. Yeah, and how they would use it. And so I didn't completely starve them of screen time.
My biggest thing, because there's some habits that have been created, and I see a lot of families, and there's so much pressure in families right now, financial, and where everything. So that has been a sad babysitter. And I'm not here to make anybody feel guilty, but if there's one thing they could change is waking up and going to bed. If they can change those first hour or two before they go to bed and when they wake up, if they can eliminate that, and like you said, limit or have a boundary on that screen, it's a good starting point.
Yeah. And even things like limiting the screen time when they're waking up, what a great way to start your day in terms, and I didn't mention this in physical activity, is instead of getting on a screen, going for a bike ride, and those endorphins, that fresh air, that physical activity, or have a jobs list so that things have to get done, and say to them, then it means that you've got free time after school. Like if you do your jobs in the morning.
Good jobs list back in the day when we used to have to milk the cows.
Pardon? Back
in the old days when we used to have to milk the cows, feed the cows. Yeah, that was the job list before.
But even now, like my kids still 17, 15 and 13, right from when they were little, they have jobs. And, if they don't get those jobs done because they want to go on their screens or whatever, I say to them, well, if that's what you choose to do, when you need me to take you to dance or you need me to take you to football, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to have the time to do that because I've got to do your jobs. So either get off your phone and do your jobs, because if it's not done by the time we need to go to football, and I said, it might sound a bit harsh, but it's firm but fair, right? And then if they get, oh, am I going to get paid for it? I'm like, sorry, do you live in this house? Like, it takes many of us to run a household, not just me or your father. Like, and so, putting it back in their world where they're going to get something from it, and that they can actually see, like I said, particularly one of my kids, very strict with her training times. We pretty much have to be out of the house by 4:45 pretty much every day. She's got homework in there. She's got things, and she's got her jobs list. Yeah, well, if your jobs aren't done, sorry, can't leave at 4:45 to take you. And then you can explain to your coaches why you're not there on time.
Yeah. So. Okay, sorry. Let's go
on. Vitamin.
Here's a big one.
Yeah, vitamin mineral supplementation. So we all know that we can't get the essential vitamins and minerals that we need through our foods anymore because our soils are so depleted.
And kids don't necessarily eat their grains, their veggies, or the fruit. Like, hey, lots of adults don't either.
Yeah, so obviously your vitamin mineral supplementation, really important. Also really important if your kids are heavily involved in sports. Jeevers, I can't pronounce, Jeevers.
Sanjeev.
Yeah, Sanjeev. He talks about the importance of a calcium supplementation on, building muscle mass, and particularly if you're heavily involved in sport. And so, if you're just in general, if you've got a picky eater, or you've got a child that is averse to different flavors, or just in general, exercise, vitamins and minerals, we all need supplementation. And that's one of the things I love about longevity, is that there are so many options. So for example, one of my kids really likes the flavor of BTT. Another kid doesn't. So she has the tablets, he has the powder. Different options. Like, so.
And mine is, I make ice blocks.
Yeah. With the BTT.
BTT, Core, any of I'm making ice blocks. So when my grandbabies come to the house, see, mine are grandbabies now. They go straight for my freezer. The Grammy's got an ice block for them, and it's got some kind of supplement, and it's usually and added fruit in it, or coconut yogurt or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I didn't think about. So you're talking icy pole.
Yeah,
or
so I'll have
ice
an ice
cubes.
block. I'm making an ice block. So I'll
Yep.
freeze BTTO, freeze Coreo. I might
I
add
never
some
thought
fruit
about
to make
doing
it
that, but
fun,
that's a
but
great idea.
it's completely, and they love it.
Awesome. I'm going to take that one on board. So yeah, vitamin minerals supplementation, and like for example the kids sprinkles, another great way of getting vitamins and minerals into the kids. There's the rebound.
Kids
There's
sprinkles I love. So since my babies were little, I put it in a dish, give them their strawberry or banana, and they actually dip it. So it's
yeah,
getting not only the fruit and vegetables, but it's like they also getting their minerals based on the
yeah,
watermelon sprinkles.
yeah. And so it's really important, vitamin and mineral supplementation, again, not just for today, but the building blocks for tomorrow.
Yeah,
The
good point.
building blocks for, as our kids become young adults and then end up grandmas and granddads, and the impact that has on long-term health. Lead by example, number 9. So model the behavior. If you've got a picky eater, you eat what you want them to eat, because 9 times out of 10, if they see you eating something, they'll want it. Or if they see you doing something, they'll want to do it. And so leading by example, the language that you use, it's really important in kids' health, even for the language. Like, so my kids will always say to me, Mum, how do you always remain so calm? And because no matter how, even if something terrible happens, it's always about looking at the positive side of it. Look at what you have, not what you don't have.
Mm.
So, I one of my kids had broken her elbow, and we were on the way to the hospital, and she was in a lot of pain. And so I just kept on saying to her, just, breathe through, it's okay. And she was starting to get a bit anxious, and, the pain was real. But by me staying calm, it
Yeah.
was able to calm her.
Amazing that calmness is your superpower. When kids like thrive on a superpower, when they learn calmness is a superpower, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And leading by example, it's just, they will also adopt the language that you use. So
And the
being
habits,
really, yeah. So
the
lead by example.
hydration, the nutrition.
Yeah. And like, for example, one of my, so my second child, when she was at kinder, so she would have been my picky eater. But I used to prepare a snack box, and she would go to kinder, and there would always be some vegetables in there, as well as fruit and, a yogurt, or, a sandwich or a wrap. And she'd always come home and the vegetables would always be left over. And she would say, oh, I'm hungry. And I'm like, yep, but we're not going to waste food. You've got to finish what's in your lunchbox first. And so I would then make my lunch, because it was around lunchtime that she would come home, and it would always be, some carrots and cucumbers and boiled egg, and so I'd sit down and eat. And then suddenly she would start eating it. She is now my star eater.
Wow, it's brilliant.
Like, so just lead by example. It takes a village to raise our children, and it certainly does. And the positive impact that this has on kids' health. So when you read the books of Steve Biddulph, and he talks about the importance of having other positive adult role models in your kids' lives, so that, if they perhaps don't want to talk to you about someone, they've got someone else trusted that they can. So it takes a village to raise. Also, taking a village to raise our children means that our kids are connected and they belong to a community. Belonging to a community makes them feel loved, which has an impact on their emotional well-being. And so when people are emotionally well, then they're going to eat well, and they're going to have that balanced nutrition. And this is where number 10 brings that full circle, that 360. Belonging to a village, belonging to a community, increases feelings of security. It makes us feel safe. And it also means that there's always someone looking out for your kid. I live in the absolutely most amazing suburb community, where
Good for you.
You know, my kids will be out of the house by 8 a.m. and they're in the street hanging out with the other kids, even at the ages of 17, 15 and 13. And it's not uncommon in the school holidays for me to come out of a Zoom meeting and walk into my lounge room, and my lounge room be filled with 10 kids in there, all playing a board game. Or even like one Friday night, got to Parents for Year here, you know, my husband and I got to 9 o'clock on a Friday night. I'm like, where are the kids? They're not home yet. And so I put a message out on the group, the street WhatsApp, saying, if anyone's seen the Rakos, can you send them home? And they're like, sorry. And I get a picture of my kids in one of the neighbors' pools. You know, they've had dinner here. So it makes them feel connected, which has a positive impact on their relationships, which is going to reduce their screen time, and it's going to increase their physical activity. And so it takes a village to raise children. It really does. It also gets them active, and it also opens them up to different cultures and different belief systems. And so, yeah, allow people to have that positive impact on your family and be part of a village. Give it back.
It's beautiful.
So one of the neighbors in the street, he has the most amazing relationship with my son, where it's not uncommon, like on a Friday evening, for them to, you know, put the fire pit out the back, and they've got some chooks, and they'll put an egg on the fire pit and toast some bread, and they're there having egg sandwiches, the boys around the fire pit, and the positive impact that has on his emotional well-being. So definitely create a village and give back. So allow people to have an impact on your kids, and you have an impact on others.
Absolutely. And then that leads, like, as you say, it leads back to the lead by example. So you can be that.
Yeah. And
so as we wrap this up, we have, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to say, we talked about a few key products along the way. Is there anything you'd like to highlight in the conversations you've had?
Yeah, so the EFA is really important, particularly around female health as well, and adolescence. So that has an impact. Obviously, I found that has a really big impact on the acne as well, and just the female development. The kids' toddy is absolutely awesome. And I also, the herbal rainforest,
which
minerals.
is comparable to the cherry mints, but those cherry mints are minerals, but the herbal rainforest, as you're speaking, is herbs and minerals.
Yeah, so that's another one. But the kids' toddy's really good. I actually quite like having a little cup full of the kids' toddy myself, but really nice tasting. The color's not so great for kids. They kind of like look at it and go, but you know, again, start with a blindfold, turn it into a game, and start with a blindfold, let them taste it, and then they'll be going to the fridge to get it themselves.
Well, again, that's where I mix it with in water with, say, one of our Core AO sticks or the Rebound sticks for the extra hydration and extra minerals, but it gives them that added benefit for sure.
Yeah. Cherry mint is absolutely beautiful, yummy. I must admit, I haven't had the Cal toddy, so I personally can't speak.
So for kids, that would be the calcium and magnesium. So is there another way that you would recommend for calcium, magnesium, or?
Yeah, so with the Osteo FX.
Sure.
So, but I've got one of my kids that really does not like anything sweet. And so she has the biocalcium tablets and the bone support tablets.
Yeah, good for her.
And she has the Pro Joint, because she's quite heavily involved in sport, the Pro Joint FX, which has got the MSM in there as well. Sorry, the Pro Joint support. So she gets her calcium that way.
Yeah. And our watermelon sprinkles has it in there too.
Yeah, and the kids, the watermelon sprinkles are an amazing way. I've not had one kid not like.
I know.
The watermelon sprinkles. And then obviously, in addition to this, is the BTT. Highly recommend the BTT. Mixing that in. One way that I have found that one of my kids will have the Osteo is by mixing BTT and Osteo together. So there, and also, as I mentioned before, the electrofuel for hydration, to encourage hydration, as well as the sticks and the smart sticks as well.
Wow. Well, you did an amazing job supporting everybody and sharing, and like your education is amazing. I'm just really so grateful. So before we wrap this up, Angela, was there anything you just like to leave? Like if somebody was like first time hearing something like this, what advice would you like, what steps would you get them to take right now? What would be the first few steps?
Um, first few steps around kids' health is one thing at a time. Work through those 10 items, but don't overwhelm yourself. Even just number one, balanced nutrition, it's a journey. Don't be hard on yourself in trying to get it all right quickly. Just think that each day, if you can just, you're one step closer to better health.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself. You know, if there's a day that you need to go to, you know, a prepackaged bar, just educate yourself around it and just have it without guilt, because and know that you are your intention is to do the best you can in the circumstance that you can. And you know, I'm on this journey 18 years later, and
Good for you.
there are times that I'm like, yeah, I could be doing this better, and there are times, but and also be kind to you. Parenting is a tough gig, and it doesn't come with a manual, but it takes a village to raise a kid. So
Great advice. Thank you
yeah.
so much. We appreciate you, Angela.